Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with Bryan Keen, president of Keen Compressed Gas. Keen is a gas and welding distribution company based in Delaware and just recently celebrated their 100th year in business. You don't hit 100 without learning a few things along the way. Bryan is one of those competitive people who you never see coming. He seems so confident and balanced when you speak with him that you might just miss that relentless drive. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do too. All right, Bryan. Hey, it's always great to see you, and welcome to Distribution Talk.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Good to see you. Good to catch up.
Yeah, it's been a few years. So as you've heard through a couple of the episodes you listened to, I always like to go back and ask about, how you got started in distribution. I mean, you obviously got started at a very young age. Why don't you give the listeners a little history, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, for sure. We're a third generation family business. We've been around 100 years. And so as a kid, my dad worked very hard at the business and I was around it and exposed to it at a very early age and very constantly. It's kind of what we did. It's what he did. It's what his family did. So I just grew up around it and really there was nothing else that I wanted to do. This is kind of where I thought I wanted to spend my life and my career, even as a young kid growing up. Just seemed like an opportunity that was too good to pass up. So as high school years, college years, this is what I prepared myself for, hoping that I would be able to be in the position that I'm in at some point in my life. So a lot of great lessons along the way, a lot of great leaders, but here I am, Yeah.
Absolutely. It's fantastic. I mean, you mentioned the 100 years kind of, as a nonchalant, we've been here 100 years. That is a huge deal, my friend. That's kind of a big accomplishment.
Absolutely, Jason. We had a blast with it last year. We had all kinds of events throughout the year, company parties and employee appreciation days and a big open house that we invited all our customers to in the fall. And we just spent all kinds of money promoting it and buying things, commemorating it. And, there's not many companies that get to 100 years, whether it's third generation family business or any other style. There's not many that get to 100 years. My grandfather started in business when he got out of the service in 1919, and my dad took it over. And I was lucky enough to be involved in it when I got out of college and now taking it over 20 years ago. It's got some great tradition, great history to it. We just want to keep it running and keep up with the times. It's a constant battle to keep your business moving forward and stay financially strong and stay fresh.
I had a similar history growing up in my family business. Started in the warehouse when I was 13 years old. After 8th grade, there was no such thing as summer vacation. I mean, that just ended for me. But you go through those periods as you're growing up in these family businesses. And there's some days you're like, yep, I'm in. And then some days they're like, no, I'm going to go do something else. For you, was it pretty much I'm all in, or did you have those moments where you thought maybe I'll go do something else?
No, Jason, I think I was all in early on. I realized the opportunity that was in front of me and realized that the opportunities probably weren't going to be greater elsewhere. And I was going to have to work hard. And there was going to be some difficulties. There were going to be some tough days. There were going to be some times maybe you wish you had chosen a different path. But at the end of the day, there is no better opportunity for me. Yeah. And, it's given me a lot of satisfaction and a lot of confidence and a great ability to support my family and do what I've wanted to do. And then you get to a point where you can start to enjoy some of what you do and keep the business running. So it's always been what I wanted to do. I don't really see myself doing anything else, even at this point of my life.
Now, you and I talking earlier, you'd mentioned that you did spend a little bit of time away from the company just to kind of explore something else. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we are a compressed gas and welding supply distributor. Back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, we were in the propane business, but we had a residential delivery of propane service. It was a nice business. It was a nice piece of our business. It was about a third of our business. And that's where I started in high school. But after about 10 years of that, the market started to change. My dad started to get a little older. We were just looking at things a little bit differently. And we decided to cash out that piece. So I went to work for the company that bought that segment of our business. And I was challenged with the conversion, basically transitioning that business and those employees that came along with it that were part of the family, part of our business, part of our culture and what have you. And I had to get them on board with the new corporate structure that we had sold out to, which was drastically different than the family business. The decision-making was different. The ability to spend money was very different. The customer service philosophy was a little bit different. That's the thing that helped, is we were still customer service driven. We were much more profit driven, as a publicly held company would be. So those 3 years that I spent working for that company, I was no longer reporting to my dad. I no longer had my brother to look over my shoulder and help me out. I no longer had my uncle, my sister. I mean, you name it.
Right.
I no longer had that safety net. It was me, and I had to make some decisions that sometimes they supported the new company. Sometimes they supported the old guard employees, but there was no safety net. My safety net was a district manager who lived 300 miles away.
Right.
I tried to bother him as little bit as I could. So really a great lesson. And that's why I'm such a believer that, my kids need to do something different, at least for a period of their life. Go apply for your own job, get your own job, negotiate your own salary, negotiate your own working conditions, and work hard and impress your own boss, and find out if that's right for you, or if that's, maybe not as easy as it appeared to be.
Oh yeah. I remember that time. So yeah, sure.
Incredible lessons, right? The lessons were both good and they were difficult, right? There were some long days there. There were some nights when you just didn't know, geez, how do I get out of this? How do I negotiate my way through this? At the end of the 3 years, much better person for it, much stronger leader. I was also at a stage of life, I think, where, I was transitioning from being young to being more mature and being a more dedicated employee, reading about leadership, studying more consistently about business, and being a better manager than just another employee who showed up for work and couldn't wait to get off work and go play softball or go play basketball or whatever the topic of the night was. So valuable time for sure.
Yeah. It's funny. Literally last week, I was down in Orlando and I happened to be doing a class for a large publicly held company, which is kind of rare for me, but I took a gentleman aside, and he had always been in publicly held companies, always been in large entities. And I just asked him, I said, hey, what's it like? Because I've never been in that. That's a different world for me. So I imagine that was an extremely different world for you as well.
Oh, yeah. Like I say, when we needed to buy trucks or we needed to buy assets or something, we just called up and gave them a purchase order number and waited for the assets to show up. When we needed to hire an employee, we just placed an ad and did some interviews and hired an employee. And now it was, whoa, those decisions that's not your decision. We got levels to decide if you can make that decision, or when you can buy that asset, or when you can hire that person. And, the fact that we needed them, or we thought we needed them, or we had the money to do it, didn't matter anymore. It wasn't your decision. It was a different structure and different way to operate a business. Yeah. I would not want to go back to that. The way that I operate now is probably at times a little, maybe a little better, maybe a little more cash responsible type way to win a business.
Right.
But I wouldn't trade what we do here for anything.
I think about that, and many of us who grew up in privately held business and family businesses, we look at that side of the fence as how stifling they are and, how stuffy that whole thing is and bureaucratic. But there is some good that comes out of those. And there's some really interesting, good challenges and practices that you can take from it. Yeah, I've had clients that I've worked with that were bought by private equity firms. And some of the demands that were put on them, they were pretty aggressive, but then they rose to the occasion. I thought, wow, well, that's not maybe sometimes in our own little family private world, we get a little complacent on a few things, and maybe we just kind of go along to get along sometimes. So what did you learn? Yeah. What were some of the things you picked up?
So, all that structure isn't necessarily bad. A lot of policies and procedures that you learn that are probably a better way to run your business, a tighter way to run your business, a little more accountability, a little more responsibility. I think, in my position now, I understand how those companies, big companies, compete and how they go to market, which helps me understand how to compete against them.
Yeah,
understand,
definitely.
Okay, speed, quickness, ability to make decisions, ability to hire that top talent that fits our culture. A lot of resumes look good, but do they fit your culture? Are they what you want to do? Are they the kind of person that's going to go, give you 110%? I just understand how to run our business a lot better from that. And they're two very different businesses, very different business models. It gave me a lot of structure. It also gave me some confidence because I had made some good decisions there and I helped that company transition and I helped them grow. And it gave me the confidence that I could go back and do it on my own.
Yeah, you can come back, to the family business and really apply some of those ideas and some thoughts. As I was mentioning, a lot of the companies, again, when we get into these family businesses, sometimes in later generations, I hate to say it, sometimes we coast a little bit. We kind of rely on the reputation of the family over the years, and we perhaps aren't as aggressive as we probably could be.
Yeah, Jason, you talked about working in the warehouse at 14 years old.
Yeah.
That was me. That was my brother. That was my sister. I mean, I remember getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to work with my brother and sister when all my friends were sleeping in, right? They were sleeping in,
Yeah.
going to the pool that afternoon and I'm working. And at the time that's not what I wanted to do.
No, not at all.
On a nice summer afternoon, I wanted to hang out with my buddies and go to the pool or play some ball somewhere. But that work ethic was installed in me by my family, by my dad, watching my family, extended family members do that. And, fortunately, I haven't lost that. I still have the drive to succeed. I still have the drive to battle it out with this business every day. And it can be a battle, as you said, it can be a battle.
Yeah.
But I still have that. I still have that drive. I still have that desire. So hopefully I'll keep that rolling.
Now, if I could switch gears for just a little bit here, you took over the presidency of the family business, transitioned into your role at a fairly young age.
Yeah, I had just completed that 3-year time period and I was about 32 years old at the time. I'd been working for 10 years and I don't know that I was really ready for it at the time. My dad was, he was to the point where he wanted to step back a little bit. And not only that, but he wanted to find out if somebody had the ability to run this business and we needed to find out sooner or later. And, we kind of had a couple of family meetings that weren't the most comfortable dinner time conversations.
Right.
They were difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, the conversation was, okay, is somebody going to take this business on? What's your plan and how you going to do it? And we worked that out. And at the end, I think my dad was probably pretty skeptical about how this was actually going to go. And he told me later, I had a 6-month window. He didn't tell me that at the time, but he told me, he said, Bryan, I'll know within 6 months if you're going to be able to do this job or not, if this is going to work. And I'm glad he didn't tell me that at the time because I don't know how I would have handled that. But that was 20 years ago. So
yeah, no kidding, man. Exactly.
Apparently it worked.
Yeah.
And it was actually 2000, 2001. If you recall, times slowed down a little bit around then. It was the .com revolution, whatever kind of, it wasn't a great time for industrial distribution. But, we made some difficult decisions. We had to right size our staff. We had to save money for a couple of years. We had to buckle down. And that's what we did. And look, we had a great management team in place. We just didn't have a single leader at the time. So I had some great mentors, vice president of sales, vice president of finance. I had some great veteran people to lead on, and they helped me a lot. But we did it. We made some difficult decisions. We got through that. And then we were able to get to those years that were much better in the mid 2000s and grow the business and have fun doing it, right? Not making all the difficult decisions, but making the fun decisions about where your next store is going to be, where your next asset's going to be, where your next growth market is going to be, right? Those kind of things that you can then afford to do and do with confidence. Right. So we got through that tough couple of year period. And then, until the 2008 recession, we hit a growth spurt. But by then we were confident in what we could do.
It's funny. You take me back to that 2001 time period. And I kind of had to learn a lot of the same things you were talking about. I remember having to, lay off half a branch. I look back at my career, it's one of the very worst days of my career, having to literally have interview after interview of I'm having to lay you off. And just, the emotional drain of that. And then having to say, well, was that enough? Are we going to make it through this?
Right. Those are tricky decisions. They're not fun.
No.
Don't feel good about yourself when you go home. It's probably the worst thing that any business owner can do or any person can do is ruin somebody's day, perhaps even ruin that section of their life. But at the end of the day, the company has to be strong. It has to be number one in your thought process. And I hate to say it, but in some ways it gives you a chance to let go some people that maybe weren't really contributing what you would like them to contribute anyway. And maybe there's a better fit for them out there. In my situation at that point, I think it earned me a lot of respect from the rest of the company because I was on trial with them as well, right?
Sure.
What's he going to do? How's he going to handle this? So I think I proved right off the bat that we could make some difficult decisions and we could do the things that we had to do to survive.
Well, I remember it wasn't just, having to do that with the employees, but the banking relationship, that was a tough one. Our bank that we'd had for decades, said, yeah, you're persona non grata anymore, my friend, and all of a sudden you're looking for a new, much tougher asset-based lending partner, but it makes you a better company in the end. I truly, as much pain as that whole thing went through and as difficult as that period was, I know that the company I grew up in, came out of it so much better, so much stronger.
Yeah, so we were in a little different situation. We had just sold the propane division 3 years earlier, so we were able to cash out that piece, and we weren't in the same financial situation, balance sheet
Right.
situation that we were 3 years ago. So the banking issue wasn't that much of an issue, but certainly continuing the brand and strengthening the brand and keeping the employees on board that this is the direction we're going, those challenges
Mhm.
were certainly there. Yeah, every day.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could take a little detour here and talk a little bit about the gas and welding business, because it's one that a lot of folks don't really understand the dynamics of it. You've got this gas side that's highly, highly profitable and exciting. I'm not going to say easy because there's a lot of regulation and compliance on that side and a lot of investment that you have to make in order to make that fly. But compared to the hard goods side. And you're like, wah, wah. That's a tough, that's a tough. It's tougher. I mean, it's not that, it's an unprofitable side, but it's hard to balance those two.
Jason, it's two completely different businesses. It really is. They're wrapped up in one. They go hand in hand. So it seems kind of weird that they're two different businesses, but they really are. A lot of your employees that you hire or develop over the years are strong in one or the other. They're strong on the gas side, or they're strong on the welding equipment side and electrodes and filler metals and safety equipment.
Right.
It's very hard to be diverse. The bigger we've gotten, we've actually have employees that specialize in both tracks so we can service both markets. The beauty of our business is that gas side, like you say, it's high barriers to entry. The margins are good, they're profitable, but the barriers to entry and the rules and regulations that you have to know and understand to be in that business keeps a lot of people out of it. The hard goods, anybody in industrial distribution these days has competitors that you never had 20 years ago. No, you never had 10 years ago, right? You've got competitors popping up every day that you've never heard of.
Right.
And not only are they competitors, but they're selling stuff not much above your cost or even below your cost. And it just makes you wonder where that future is. And it makes it hard to invest in your business. But so far, so good. We're still an old school kind of industry. Most people still value that relationships. And we work so hard on relationships. We work so hard with our outside guys and our inside people to just create those relationships and continue to add value to your customers, being a partner, being a teammate, showing them better ways to do things. Even if they have to spend more money for a different filler metal or welding electrode that saves them time in the end, or automate a process. Those are the kind of things that you really struggle to learn on a website or by watching a video or something. If you have that guy that you watch Little League baseball games with, or go to wrestling matches with, or track meets with, and then on Monday he's telling you a better way to run your business, that's hard to beat. So that's what we try to do. Those people that are involved in the community and know the end users of our product, we try to keep the talent on board that can really help promote our company and our products. The gas business will, until the internet guys find a way to do that, which is very difficult, it's very much a bricks and mortar local delivery kind of business that will support us well.
Well, and, as I think you were mentioning a little bit, it's the compliance, legal compliance issues and some of the regulations associated with it. I read an article that this is the pebble in your shoe. This is the challenge that you have to face on that gas side, is the regulations and the legal side.
Oh, it just comes at you from every angle. I mean, OSHA and the FDA and the DOT when you're driving your trucks and training your drivers and training your people to be safe and be conscientious all day long. It just comes at you from every angle. And, you do 100 things right, and that's great, but you do one thing wrong and just don't want to be that company that's on the front page of the paper or on the 6 o'clock news. You just don't want to be that. And you have to work so hard, and you have to train your people so hard and make sure that they understand what they're dealing with every day and the importance of it. So we talk to our people all the time about that. We want nothing more than all of our people to go home happy, healthy, and safely, right? And spend the night with their family every night. So you have to address all the minor incidents, because minor incidents become major incidents if they are left uncoached or unaddressed. We've built a safety culture here with the help of our insurance company over the last couple of years, where we just continually continually preach that so that we try to understand the rules and learn from our mistakes. And we openly discuss our mistakes because, like I say, today's minor mistakes are tomorrow's major accidents. You just can't allow that to happen.
It just kind of occurred to me, I'm thinking about that. It's easier to be innovative on that side, isn't it? Because of the margins, and innovation tends to breed itself around that gas side.
So much so, Jason, our business has changed so much since, again, those years we were talking about when we were in high school working in the warehouse, right? We live and work here in the industrial Northeast. And the industrial Northeast is not as industrial as it used to be.
For sure.
The auto manufacturing plants are gone. All those companies that supported the auto manufacturings, the steel mills, are not what they used to be if they're still here. So that business has slowly left over the years, and it has been replaced by biotechnical business and pharmaceutical business and laboratories and universities and research companies. And we have been fortunate enough, and if I could say so, smart enough to recognize those opportunities and address all kinds of different opportunities where we can help those customers. And a lot of these young growing customers will grow up and become nice accounts that will serve us for years, and we'll serve them for years. So all kinds of application changes with specialty gases and liquid gases, liquid nitrogen and oxygen. And, we've invested heavily in that side of the business. And there's really not a whole lot that we can't do, not a whole lot of customers that we can't help, be it food packaging, be it metal processing, be it chemicals, any of those sorts of things.
Yeah, the cryo business. I mean, that's kind of been a really big piece of your growth over the last several years.
Absolutely. And people don't even understand. They don't understand the uses for this. So you go to the convenience store and you pick up a pre-made salad or a package of food or something. Well, it's pressurized with liquid nitrogen. Your water bottles, your soda bottles are pressurized with liquid nitrogen. It removes the contaminants. It removes the oxygen. It keeps your lettuce green instead of turning brown. It keeps your apples fresh. So all those applications have really just come about in the last 10 years. Meat processing, your prepackaged meats at the grocery store, we can keep them fresh for days with our applications. So that's the kind of thing that you would have no idea as a consumer, right? You just go to your favorite convenience store and pick out your food and it looks good and it tastes good. Well, behind the scenes, we're there helping that process out. And those applications are really growing left and right.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's just kind of a fascinating new world. When you think of cryogenics and things like that, it's like, well, you're freezing heads.
Yeah.
You're keeping people around, celebrities around for years, or what?
And we can do that too. We can.
Okay.
We have customers that freeze all kinds of samples, various medical samples of some kind, and they'll stay frozen for 20 years or more. But they're cryogenically frozen to super, super low temperatures. You can't economically do that with an electric type freezer. You just can't get the temperatures and you just can't do it economically. But yeah, we do all that. Universities, there's so much research and development, and pharmaceutical companies with all their research and development, and we're there every step of the way to help them. Yeah.
That's really, again, really fantastic. And it's exciting to talk about. But then you think, okay, how do you maintain enthusiasm for the hard goods side? I mean, I feel like also, the reps of the hard goods side, your welding supply, guys, or your safety supplies, how do they get you all excited about that side of the business?
Yeah, you battle it out every day. You incent them, you compensate them, you teach them the new things too, Jason. You can't just be happy with what you sold yesterday. You've got to keep them fresh. You've got to get your vendor reps in. You got to show them what the new product on the market is. You got to get them excited about it. And then you got to compensate them for selling it. It really goes back to the hiring process and making sure you have people that are excited and share the same values that you do. And then you end up with the 20, 30, 40-year employees that we like to say they bleed Keen green. And that's a two-way street. We have to want that and they have to want that. And it's got to work for both of us. But there's still plenty of need out there for those products. You got to battle it out every day. You got to win the battles. Yeah.
Sure. And it sounds to me like a lot of it's between your ears, especially with the people that work with you and for you.
No doubt. We've been fortunate and we've paid a lot of attention to it as a third generation. We've had a lot of people retire within the last 5 or 8 years, and we aggressively went on recruiting campaigns and strategically, well in advance, prepared ourselves for the retirement of some of these key long-term employees. And in the next couple years, it has paid off for us and it will continue to pay off for us. I'm just trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Now, Do most of your salespeople play both sides of the fence, gas and hard
They
goods?
do. They do.
Okay.
We consider them generalists, so they can sell
Okay.
anything. And then they can recognize when maybe they're getting in a little over their head, and then they call in a specialist. And whether that
Okay.
specialist works
Okay.
for us or is a vendor rep, they call in the specialist. And then we hopefully then go close the deal with the expert opinions.
So as a salesperson looking at this, I mean, how do they reconcile this difference in their head? They look at this shiny margin over here on the gas side,
Yeah.
and how do they say, well, I got to sell these hard goods too. And I got to remember to sell safety. I got to remember to sell parts and things like this. How do you motivate them in your company to really try to be a full, well-rounded generalist, if you
Yeah,
said?
while there's plenty of growth on the gas side, the core welding industrial side is just what we've done. It's what most employees with us have grown up with. So that's their base, that's their comfort, and that doesn't go away. And it's a necessary piece of our business. And they recognize that it's still a good, profitable piece of their business portfolio. So they know that to keep the customer ordering their gases and supplies every week, they have to solve problems for that customer. They've got to be a consultant for that customer, no matter what the question or problem is.
Yeah, well, good. No, I can appreciate that. I remember, years and years ago when I was exposed to your business, that was a big deal. I was really more exposed on the inventory management side. They're like, come on, why do I have to count this stuff? Man, this is just a pain, to maintain the inventory levels on my hard goods side, man. The gas it kind of does its own thing over here.
Jason, you start counting inventory and then you got to wipe the dust off the stuff that you haven't counted for years. And then I walk around and I say, why is there an inch of dust on that? You got to sell that. You got to get it out the door at any cost. You got to turn it into cash. So
right.
Things. And then we throw a discontinued inventory report into their face every month and ask them to, get moving on it, turn it into cash so that we don't have a bigger problem than we already do. So yeah, it's not fun, but you know what? They're incented to do that.
So looking at the future here, you mentioned that your oldest son is not in the family business, but probably spent an awful lot of time around the family business. What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, so I have three boys, one just out of college, one in college, and one still in high school. They all worked here in the summertime, so they know a good bit about the business and the people here and what it's involved. And the opportunity is here for them if and when they're ready to take advantage of it. I don't know what that's going to look like 5 years from now, or much less 10 years from now. They certainly have their own decisions to make and their lives to live. I hope they come in and at some point at least give it a shot. They're all in good spots. And at the end of the day, all you can ask is that they're happy and in a good spot. So we'll see. I still have a lot of fun running this business. So
sure.
We're good.
Well, you're a young man. I mean, come on, man. You're about my age. Come on. We're supposed to remind ourselves we're young and we're not ready to hang up the cleats yet.
No, not at all. Not at all. And the change of it is fun. Managing through the changes every year is fun. You look back on what you accomplished or where you were 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or even last year. And you just, you got to be proud of what you accomplished and you got to keep it fresh and keep having fun running the business. And the day that you don't have fun running the business is the day you really need to start looking at your options. But I'm nowhere near there.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. It's interesting. I interviewed a gentleman a few weeks ago, if I can recall, but he's a really good planner. And so he really at about 60 is when he said, I got a 10-year plan for getting out of this at 70. And that always struck me as, good forward thinking on that type of thing.
Yeah, I think at this point we pretty much stick to 3 and 5 year business plans. 10 years out is a long way for me to be thinking at this point. But yeah, 3 to 5 years. We just finished a major investment into our business last year, so it's going to be a huge opportunity for growth for us when we get this plant running the way we want it. And yeah, there's no end in sight. There's tremendous opportunity here in this market. We'll keep on.
Yeah, it sounds like there's tremendous opportunity in the gas and welding business. I mean, it's really not going away.
No, it's growing. We've got great business partners that we work with, and they keep us up to date on where we should be and what we should be doing. We keep in touch with the market. We keep in touch with what other competitors or friends of ours are doing around the country and what's working for them. And we see if we can't make that work in our market as well.
Speaking of that, I know that you've created great friendships over the years, the industry association you're involved with and whatnot. How much has that played a part in your success and your family's success really over the years?
Oh God, tremendous. It's best practices. It's idea sharing. It's, what's worked for people around the country, what hasn't worked for people around the country. I mean, I can go
Yeah.
almost anywhere in this country and look up a friend that's in the business, right? And stop by and see them and see how they're doing and have just a no holds barred conversation because we're not competitors. We're friends. We're in the same
Yeah.
business. We're on completely different markets, maybe even completely different sides of the country. So we've invested a lot in that over the years. And those relationships have been invaluable. Otherwise, you just kind of sit here in your own market, thinking that the world is no bigger than your office or your 50-mile radius of what you do, and that's
Right.
just not the case. You just can't sit there and wait for things to be dictated to you. You've got to go find them. You've got to spend that money. You've got to invest that time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked that people join these, associations and they just hang out on the sidelines. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, so the common excuse is that I'm too busy running my business, or I can't get
Yeah.
away. So and so is sick, or so and so can't run the business. Well, that's okay, but you're never going to grow your business that way. You're never going to take your business to the
Right.
next level. You're never going to be confident enough to turn it over to the next generation. At some point, you just have to step back, let somebody run it for a couple of days while you're away. And what's the worst that can happen? Give them parameters within which they can work. Especially today, you're never disconnected. Today, you're connected
Right.
24/7 today, whether
Right.
you want to be or not.
Whether you like it or not.
You're connected
Yeah,
24/7.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of small businesses out there that won't take that time to do that. My opinion is that that's short-sighted, and you're going to limit your ability to take yourself to the next level.
Absolutely. Well, if you could give any, parting words on how does somebody stay in business for 100 years, just, in a very short, what is that key ingredient? How do you make it actually just to the next generation? I know a lot of our listeners would love to hear that.
Yeah, Jason, so I was preparing for this the last couple of days. And of course, as you know, tragically, Kobe Bryant just died a couple of days ago. And
Yeah.
I've read a lot and I've looked a lot at what he was about. And I never really realized this, but he was just a relentless competitor. He was a tireless competitor. He was a hard worker. He was day in and day out working at his craft. He never accepted defeat. He never accepted somebody on his team that didn't work hard, that didn't give it their all, that didn't have, that desire to win. He realized that not everybody was as talented as he was or was going to make every shot like he wanted to. He just had that refuse to lose mentality like a Michael Jordan did.
Yeah,
Two guys that really set themselves way above. So you ask me a business question and I give you a sports analogy. But that's what it is, right?
Sure.
It's not always fun.
For sure.
The hours in the gym shooting 3-pointers when nobody's looking, it's not fun, right? But the NBA championship is what it's all about, and that is fun. Business is very, very similar, right? It's hard work. It's refusing to lose. It's not quitting. It's surrounding yourself with the most talented people you can and playing the game to win every day. It's not always sexy. It's not always glamorous, but there are times when it is sexy and glamorous, and that's when you're glad you put the work in. Right. And that's when you're glad that you've had a successful year or you landed that big account. Yeah. And that's when you can kind of relax a little bit and say, man, I had a good day today.
Well said, my friend. And great seeing your face as always.
Yes.
And I look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Yeah, Jason, thanks a lot for the opportunity. And
yeah, you bet.
We'll see you again sometime. Good working with you.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.